All right, let's dive right into one of the most mind-bending mysteries in all of science, your own brain, and the incredibly powerful, persistent illusion that you are actually the one in control of it. We all walk around every single day feeling like we're the conscious authors of our lives. But as we're about to see, the science tells a very different and honestly deeply fascinating story about who or what is really pulling the strings. I mean, think about it. You've been there, right? Have you ever made a crystal clear, ironclad decision to go to sleep at 10 p.m. and then suddenly it's 2 a.m., the laugh track is blaring, and you've watched 3 more episodes of a sitcom? You're sitting there asking yourself, why am I still watching this? Your conscious mind made a choice, but your body did the exact opposite. This is a super relatable moment, but it playfully highlights a profound biological truth. Our conscious mind is constantly getting overruled by hidden forces. And it perfectly illustrates the grand illusion of the human experience. You feel like a unified, single self sitting right there behind your eyes, but that feeling, it's actually generated by a massive, distributed network of nearly 90 billion neurons. There's no central command center. Instead, for every single conscious choice you make, there's a vast clockwork machinery operating entirely in the dark, managing everything from your digestion to your deepest desires. Section 1. Glitches in the System, investigating the edge cases of consciousness. To truly understand how this well-oiled machine works, we kind of have to play detective. We need to look at what happens when it breaks down. Let's see how looking at the glitches, these extreme scenarios where the brain falls out of sync, reveals the hidden architecture of our minds. And there's really no better place to start than with something millions of people do: sleepwalking. Sleepwalking patients have been known to eat, drive, or in the case of one specific patient, paint a perfect triangle on their kitchen wall, all while completely asleep. No way, right? How is that even possible? Well, it happens because your brain doesn't just wake up all at once. During a sleepwalking episode, the motor cortex and visual cortex wake up, which allows for complex movement. But the prefrontal cortex, the brain's decision maker, the part responsible for deliberate choices, your identity, and your self-awareness, that part stays in a deep, slow wave sleep. You are literally walking around without you being there. We see another absolutely fascinating glitch when we look at general anesthesia. When you're fully awake, your brain waves are fast, they're dynamic and diverse. It looks like a lively, exciting conversation happening across all the different regions of your brain. But when anesthesia drugs are introduced, they target a deep brain communication hub called the thalamus. And once the thalamus is shut down, that dynamic conversation completely flatlines into this dull, slow-rolling, monotonous hum. The whole brain is still physically there, but because the pieces can no longer communicate with each other, your consciousness completely vanishes. But honestly, the most shocking glitch of all comes from split brain patients. These are individuals who had the physical connection between their left and right brain hemispheres surgically severed to treat severe epilepsy. In one really famous study with a patient named Joe, researchers flashed the word Texas to his right brain. Now, because the right brain controls the left hand, Joe's left hand drew a cowboy hat. Makes sense, right? But here is the crazy part. The language center is in the left brain, and that side never saw the word. So when researchers asked Joe why he drew a hat, his speaking left brain had absolutely no idea. But it didn't admit that. Instead, it instantly invented a reason on the spot, fabricating a story to make sense of an action it didn't even control. It proves that we can literally have two completely separate minds operating and even squabbling inside one skull. Section 2. Hidden forces inside you, the everyday strings steering your decisions. Okay, so our brains are clearly master storytellers when things go medically out of sync. But what about when we're perfectly healthy? Let's pivot from these extreme glitches to the everyday social and biological forces that are quietly steering your decisions from behind the curtain. We so often think of emotions as these irrational forces that just ruin our logical decision-making, but neuroscientists studying games of economic trust have found that emotions are actually essential data. Think of a brain region called the insula as a thermometer. It detects ambient social temperatures, giving you that gut feeling of guilt if you even consider being greedy. The insula feeds that data right to the prefrontal cortex, which acts as a thermostat, adjusting and regulating your behavior to keep you cooperative. Your brain is using these hidden emotional forces to help you navigate a highly complex social world. And we know exactly what happens when that emotional thermostat gets smashed. Consider the infamous 19th century medical case of Phineas Gage. He was a railroad worker who had a massive iron rod blown straight through his prefrontal cortex. Miraculously, his memory, his language, and his motor skills remained completely intact. But his friends noted that Gage was just no longer Gage. He completely lost his social filter, becoming erratic and profane. This horrific accident provided some of the early, undeniable proof that your personality, your restraint, and even your morality aren't just abstract concepts. They're deeply rooted in physical biology. But here's where it gets even wilder. These biological forces don't just develop during your lifetime. They can actually be inherited before you take your first breath. In some groundbreaking epigenetic research, scientist Bianca Jones-Marlin paired a mild shock with the scent of almonds in a generation of mice. Naturally, these mice grew more brain cells to detect that specific threat. But amazingly, this trauma actually altered their genetic code in their sperm and eggs. The next generations of offspring were born already possessing an unusually high number of almond receptor cells. It shows that the experiences and the traumas of your ancestors literally rewire the physical architecture of your brain, steering your survival instincts today. Section 3. Testing your free will. Is agency just a magic trick? So, if our personalities are biological and our ancestors' traumas are hardwired right into our noses, it begs a pretty massive, unsettling question. Is agency, our core sense of free will, just a biological magic trick? To test this, researchers brought in a participant named Tomas and hooked him up to a transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS device. TMS uses a focused magnetic field to safely stimulate the motor cortex. Essentially, the researchers could press a button and force Tomas's finger to twitch involuntarily. It's literally like a puppeteer pulling a string. Now, by hooking up sensors to Tomas's muscles, the researchers found something absolutely astounding. When Tomas decided to move his finger on his own, the electrical signal showed that his brain actually initiated the movement 50 milliseconds before his finger physically moved. 50 milliseconds! That means the unconscious brain decides to take action slightly before the conscious mind has even fully registered the physical event. But wait, here is where the illusion of free will just completely shatters. The researchers asked Tomas to intentionally move his finger. But right as his brain initiated that voluntary movement, they fired the TMS magnetic pulse, essentially intercepting his own natural action. When they asked him if he felt in control of that movement, Tomas reported having no agency at all. He actually blamed the computer. Even though his brain started the movement, because the physical feedback didn't align perfectly, his conscious mind entirely abandoned its sensible ownership. It proves that our feeling of control is highly fragile and constructed retrospectively. We act first and then consciously claim ownership later. Section 4. The power of letting go. Why losing control is a biological superpower. Look, I know it can be a little terrifying to realize just how much of our lives is running on unconscious autopilot. But losing conscious control isn't just some quirk of nature. It's actually a profound biological superpower. To see this superpower in action, neuroscientists put a professional freestyle rapper, Chris Emdin, inside an MRI scanner. First, they had him perform a memorized rap. During this, his prefrontal cortex, that conscious, self-monitoring decision center we talked about, was highly active. But when they asked him to improvise and freestyle on the spot, the MRI showed his prefrontal cortex almost completely deactivating. To achieve true, spontaneous creativity, the conscious mind had to get out of the way and power down. And this all builds to a beautifully clear takeaway about why our brains evolved exactly this way in the first place. If a professional basketball player tries to consciously control their mechanics during a free throw, they'll likely choke under the pressure. Overthinking ruins high-level performance. Trusting the unconscious pilot is what enables rapid flow states, artistic innovation, and peak athletic performance. More than that, life itself is completely unscripted. We are constantly navigating novel conversations and unpredictable environments. It's really only by relinquishing conscious control that we can fluently and creatively adapt to the world around us. You are not a single, unified pilot steering a machine. You're a vast, sprawling network of biological histories, social feedback loops, and unconscious mechanisms all working together in this incredibly delicate dance. Which leaves us with one final, deeply provocative question to ponder. If practically everything you do is governed by a collection of hidden, unconscious processes, who exactly is the you that's watching this explainer right now? Take a moment to think about that one. We'll see you next time.